Yes, Thanksgiving Day, we had 16 people over for our family dinner, and I was in charge of the turkey as well as some other things. And I had recently purchased some really cool digital Thermomaven G2 thermometers, so I was super excited to use them. And about 2 hours into the cook process of a 23.5-pound turkey, I realized that the ambient temperature sensors on those thermometers were registering like 197 degrees when the oven said it was 325. So the main symptom here is that the oven would come up to temperature properly, but it would not maintain the temperature. So I did some research to figure out what types of things might actually cause issues with maintaining the temperature. And the two items that were recommended were to check the thermosensors that are inside the oven cavity itself, and also to check the baking element. I will say that the turkey itself, about 3/4 of the turkey came out perfectly fine. Everybody raved about how delicious and juicy the turkey was and flavorful, so that was great. The other stuff that we cut off that wasn't completely cooked, just simply threw that in the air fryer for about 5-6 minutes, and that was ready to serve as well. So in the end, everything worked out just fine. But of all the days in the world for your oven to die, Thanksgiving is absolutely a nightmare. So in this video, I'm going to walk through how to replace the thermosensor in your oven cavity. My particular oven, I'm going to show the model number down here, has two thermosensors inside of it. One is in the top right corner, one is in the bottom left corner. I'm going to walk through replacing one of them, and I'll also share the part number that I ordered to do this replacement. So let's go ahead and see how this is done. To begin, pull your range away from the wall and carefully unplug the plug from the outlet. Next, we need to identify all of the screws on the back of the range that will allow us to remove the sheet metal panel. Be sure to keep track of all of your screws so you have them available to reinstall the panel later. Once all of the screws have been removed, carefully lift up the panel from the bottom, upwards, and slide the panel out of the top grooves. Next, open your oven door and slide out the racks and set them aside for the replacement. On my particular model, the top sensor is located in the top right corner of the cavity, as shown here. To remove the sensor, use a long Phillips screwdriver to remove the two screws holding the sensor in. Be aware that these screws may be fairly hard to loosen. Once the screws have been loosened, reach in and remove the screw to avoid having it fall into the bottom of the oven. Using a pair of needle-nosed pliers or your hand, gently pull on the sensor to pull it away from the back of the oven. Keep in mind that there is a connector on the back, so you won't be able to pull it out all the way quite yet. On the back of the oven, you'll see the area where the sensor enters the oven, as well as the cable that plugs it into the computer. Disconnect the connector by squeezing the tab and pulling. Once disconnected, you can push the cable into the opening to the oven cavity. Back on the oven side, gently pull the connector through the opening to remove it. Next, retrieve the new replacement sensor and carefully insert the plastic connector into the firewall hole on the back of the oven. Moving to the back of the range again, locate the connector for the replacement sensor and plug it into the connector we removed the old one from. Next, retrieve the two screws we removed earlier and reach in to place the screws loosely in their respective holes. Then, using a long Phillips screwdriver, tighten those screws back up, ensuring that the sensor is installed vertically like the old one was. Here's a shot of what it looks like completely installed. On my particular model, I actually have two sensors due to being able to put an insert into my oven and essentially having two ovens. If you need to replace this sensor, follow the same process but on the other sensor. In my case, that is in the lower left corner. Looking at the back of the range, this is where the connector is located for that second sensor. To reinstall the rear panel, insert the tabs along the top into the grooves on the top of the range and then slowly lower it into place. Be sure to reinstall all of the screws to secure the rear panel. Carefully plug the range back into the outlet. To test things out, I purchased a cheap oven thermometer online to have a secondary method of measuring the ambient temperature in the oven. I then placed the thermometer inside the oven. Next, I'll set my oven to bake at 350 degrees. I'll keep an eye on the display to monitor the preheating cycle. After several minutes, the oven says that it is at 350 degrees. If we take a look at the thermometer in the oven, we can see that it is also pretty close to 350 degrees. After another minute or so, I checked again, and it is pretty much dead on. I then moved it over to the right top corner, and you'll notice it is close, but not exactly at 350 degrees. So now that we've gone ahead and replaced the thermosensors, after doing my tests, I thought I was home free, and then I realized that I was still having the same exact problem. So I then moved on to part 2 of the repair recommendations, which was to replace the hidden bake element in the bottom of the oven. So make sure to check out my part 2 video where I cover how to replace the element in the bottom of the oven.